and 2 and 3. This is a test. We're going to see how this sounds on the other item of the day. Thank you very much. So that we can answer any questions regarding this. There are a lot of announcements regarding how this course feeds into a retreat that we have in September, but I'm going to leave that all to the end. I'm sure you just want to get into the substance of the evening tonight. So we have this entitled Tantric Massage and Expanded Orgasm, but in actuality, it's really the first segment of the Sensual Love and Intimacy course that we have. And I'm going to start off by just telling you a little bit about me. For 25 years, I was a professional ballroom dancer. And I would say a lot of my training that I got in terms of how to work with energy with a woman was actually on the dance floor, believe it or not. It took me 20 years to figure out what leading actually meant. Because for the longest time, I thought, me, Indian chief, I lead, you follow, don't move. And we never got anywhere with that attitude. And it took about, close to 16 years to be disabused of that idea until I finally got what leading and following was all about. And then my then wife and I at the time became United States champions twice, represented the world for 2 competitions. And then we retired very quickly because there were young bucks way at our heels, just nipping at the butt. So we wanted to exit out as winners. But I have to say, when it comes to the interaction between a male and female, there are really only 2 activities that I know of where your mind, your emotions, and your whole physicality is engaged in specific roles as male and female. Dancing is one of them, and I'll leave it to your imagination to figure out what the other one is. At about 1994, I went through, I guess what's commonly called a midlife crisis. Us men all go through it. Maybe we don't. I know I did. And I went through this crisis at a very critical time. Back in 1994, 1993, we didn't have the structure of the internet and the networking of the internet that we had. I went through a crisis where my whole body fell apart. I actually had thought I was this unmerciful word called impotent for the first time in my life. Viagra had not existed. And I thought, where can I go to a pawn shop and purchase a revolver and end it all? Because I was just having so much fun. And all of a sudden, when this came upon me, I said to myself, this can't be where life leads. I came across a book, and I only did this after I had had a couple of visits to urologists, because urologists then were the people that you went to handle sexual reproductive problems. And though my problem wasn't simply relegated to my genitals, it was also something I was feeling with my health and all that, I quickly realized that the medical profession had bought into this idea that as we age, things happen naturally. And when I kept seeing them as an example of people that I was seeking help, I really was either at a point of desperation or really going to find out some answers for myself. Now, mind you, this was at a time when we had very little internet on this subject, and again, Viagra had not existed. It wasn't until 1997, I think, where it was approved. So there was no information out there. I went to the alternative health treatment by going to bookstores. I went to East West Bookstore on 14th Street. Doesn't exist anymore. I think it closed down last week. And I found this book called The Tao of Health, Sex, and Longevity. Found this book very interesting because I'd never seen the words Taoism or Tao associated with sex and health and longevity. Now, I had practiced some Tai Chi in college, and I was very attracted then to the Taoist philosophy, but I'd never seen the word sex contained in Taoism. So I was very intrigued in this book. Naturally, when I got the book, I turned to the back index page, and believing that I was impotent, I said, what did they say about impotency? And I looked very quickly and I said, impotency is caused, the Chinese Taoists believe, by excessive sex. And I said, no. All that fun I was having, it amounted to this. And they're telling me that life is over because of that. And what good is life anyway if I was having all that fun and it leads to this deterioration of the body? I don't get it. What intrigued me next was the next line. It said, the Taoists believe that the cure for impotency is more sex. And I said, whoa, I like this book. But what the hell are they talking about? And it was those two lines that led me into a discovery about human sexuality, about health, about life, about interaction with women that would change my life. And you'll see a little bit of why I'm telling you this, but the book kept referring to a book called Cultivating Sexual Energy, because what they were talking about was engaging in more sex, kind of to get the car started. So if let's say you have a dead battery and it's not quite dead, what do you do with the car? You get it rolling, get it started up, and the alternator starts the car recharging, and sure enough, in a couple of miles, you have a battery that's going to get you through life. And that's basically the system that the Taoists had been talking about, a system where we engage back in our sexuality, but instead of depleting our sexual energy, which I certainly did as a dancer in my lifetime, we learn to harness that energy and recharge our battery fully and start to integrate it into our way of living. Very different concept. I went to Chinatown 2 days later after reading about this, and I started walking the streets up and down because I couldn't find this in any bookstore. And sure enough, on Mott Street, there it was, right in the window, this book. And I read it from cover to cover, and I called Master Chia. He was living in Huntington, Long Island at the time. And I said, Master Chia, I want to learn how to master my sexual energy. And he kind of giggled, and he said, well, I'm leaving for Thailand, creating my retreat, but he referred me to some wonderful senior instructors. And I went on to become a Taoist instructor, which to this day I've been teaching for the past 15 years. So I talk about this because I want you to have a background as to one aspect that I am trained in that has been a huge asset when it comes to exchanging energy, sexual energy with another person. So it wouldn't be fair to me to not tell you about this aspect, especially to the men in this group, if you didn't know about this part, because the Taoists have this idea of sexuality, not too dissimilar from the tantric beliefs, that sexuality is something that we can actually integrate into our lives for our spiritual practice. From that, I created Sexy Spirits. I was ready to wave my banner because within about 7 months, I was back to the usual me again, and very grateful, and thought, my God, men have to learn about this. And that was my goal at the time when I created Sexy Spirits way back in 1999. I said, men must learn this. And I started to put out advertisements to teach men. And do you know how many men would come? Very few. Very few. So at the time I said, geez, there's a message here, and I better bring in some other aspects of training and teaching so that we can get people hearing about this. So I started to, as we do today, engage other teachers and instructors in the Tantra fields. And a result of that is every year now we have a Sacred Sex Roundup, which is happening in October, where we have teachers from all over the world come in and teach. It'll be a Times Square location, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. I'm going to give you a little bit. What's that? I'm going to give you a little bit of history, or better yet, herstory. Something on this. Just a very quick story. I didn't think I was going to tell you this, but it's an interesting story. My last year of college, I went to a college called Antioch College, Yellow Springs, Ohio. Now, if you ever know anything about Antioch, back then, it was probably the first progressive liberal college. It was really radical college in that it had co-ed dorms for the first time. And it had a grading system. It didn't have, it just had a pass or fail. You had to be very smart to get in there, but you could be an idiot to stay in. and just pass it. And I don't know what got over me, but my last year, I was missing one credit for my English, and I was really obsessed for some reason that there had been, I felt that all the history that I had learned, there was nothing about the history of women. So I thought it would be very clever to send in a manila envelope titled The Entire History of Women, and I sent in a bunch of ashes. And I handed that as my project, and I never got accepted for it. But I look back at that because I never realized that somewhere back there was a seed in me somewhere that was searching for this hidden, kind of the hidden story of women that we don't have in our culture. And you'll see that what you're going to learn tonight gives us just so much. What we have, I think, between what Lisa has learned and all the people that are studying in this vein, it just could fill volumes in a library and help so many people in the school system today and create the change the dysfunction that we have around human sexuality. So I'm going to start talking a little bit about the background so that you realize that what I'm going to do tonight has a history. And I'm going to start with the orgasm that shook the world. Believe it or not, this orgasm that shook the world started with Sigmund Freud coming out with this kind of statement. And his statement was, it regarded the female orgasm. And as it says, he regarded clitoral orgasm as immature and imitative of the male orgasm. Remember, he had this idea that females had penis envy. So one of the reasons why he assessed that females easily orgasm out of clitoral orgasm is because that was their way of planning more power to the male penis that they didn't have. And that vaginal orgasm achieved through intercourse is mature and superior. He maintained that clitoral orgasm was most likely a holdover from adolescent masturbatory practices that had to be unlearned. Now, I am not here to criticize Freud, but I am here to say he was an incredibly influential person, that a statement like this became ingrained in the human psyche. And it began to set off, I would say, if we were going to talk about the sexual revolution that took place nearly 20 years after Freud, that was the dynamite right there. That was the seed. That was where it started. A statement like that began to